We'll now start by understanding currency forwards and futures. So before we do that, we'll understand the concept of currencies. So an exchange rate is simply the amount of one currency that we will receive in exchange for another. So 50 INR per USD implies that for 50 INR we will get $1 US. A direct quote is the amount of domestic currency for 1 unit of foreign currency. So for an Indian, a quote of 50 INR to the USD would be a direct quote. That is, how much of the domestic currency do we need to give for 1 unit of the foreign currency? For a US citizen, this would be an indirect quote because it is how much of the foreign currency for 1 unit of the domestic currency. For a US citizen, a direct quote would be 1 upon 50 USD for 1 INR, or it would be 0.02 USD per INR. So this would be a direct quote for a US citizen and an indirect quote for an Indian citizen. Now, the reason why we're discussing this first is that even though they mean the same, 50 INR per USD or 0.02 USD per INR imply the same interpretation, but we must make sure that all currencies are in the same quotes before we can start working on them or before we can add or subtract them. So as a general rule of thumb, become a US citizen, since it's a US based exam, so domestic generally means US. So be a US citizen and bring everything in your direct quote, that is amount of USD per INR. If USD is not in the question, then be a citizen of any one country you can choose and bring everything in your direct quote. So direct is the amount of domestic currency for 1 unit of the foreign currency. Now, just like we have forwards and futures on stocks and bonds as we saw, we can have forwards on currencies. So let's say the spot currency rate is 0.02 USD per INR. I will be traveling 6 months later and I will need some US dollars. Similarly, a US citizen would be coming to India 6 months later and he would need some Indian rupee, or he would want to sell some USD. So again, both of us can enter into a contract to exchange a fixed amount of currency at a fixed rate in the future. At 2 equal to 0, this is the spot rate of the currency. At t equal to 1, we can exchange the currency at some pre-decided rate k or f naught. Just like we studied that f is equal to s naught e raised to the power rt in the case of stocks, it can be proven that f will be equal to s naught e raised to the power r minus r star into t in the case of currencies, where r is the domestic risk-free rate and r star is the foreign risk-free rate. So the foreign risk-free rate is thought of as the dividend yield, and this quote is a direct quote. That is, domestic for one will be foreign for another, and foreign for somebody will be domestic for somebody else. So make sure that this is in the direct quote, otherwise the formula will reverse. So this is domestic upon foreign, how many domestic for 1 unit of foreign, and then e raised to the power domestic risk-free rate minus the foreign risk-free rate into t. Let's try to understand the derivation of this formula a little bit. Again, the formula is a no arbitrage relationship. That is, if this formula did not exist, then there would be a no arbitrage relationship. Now S0 is a spot price, R is the domestic risk-free rate, we'll call it RD, RF is the foreign risk-free rate. Now if the currencies were not to change, let's say 0.02 USD per INR would persist, and the risk-free rate in India was 10% and the risk-free rate in the US was 2%, then is there an arbitrage opportunity? If the interest rate or if the currency rate did not change, then the arbitrage is simply to borrow in the US at 2% and invest in India at 10%, and you can again repatriate the money because exchange rate is going to be the same. Now the forward rate is decided such that this arbitrage opportunity does not exist. So let's try to exploit the arbitrage, and then let's see what should be the fair forward rate such that this opportunity does not exist. So we can start with any amount of money. We can start with $10, $100, $1 million as well. If it's an arbitrage opportunity, then it's an infinite profit making opportunity, because the more we borrow, the more we can earn. Let's start for instance with $1 and let's try to exploit this arbitrage. So if we borrow $1, that's the way to exploit. Borrow at 2% and invest at 10%. So we'll borrow $1 at 2% and convert it into Indian rupee. So the exchange rate is 0.02 USD per INR. That is a spot rate. So for 1 USD, how much INR will we get? 50. That is nothing but 1 upon S0. For 1 USD, we will get 1 upon S0 INR, because for 1 INR we get 0.02 USD. For 1 USD we'll get 1 upon S0 or 50 INR. So it will be 1 USD into 1 upon S0. This is the amount I now have in INR. I've borrowed in USD, converted it to INR, invested it at the rate of 10%. Let's say for T years. Here we're assuming 1 year, but we'll generally compute for T years. So if we invest this in the INR for T years, how much would this money become at the end of T years? Into e raised to power RT. Borrow $1, convert it to rupee, invest it in India. This will be RF into T because we invested it in the foreign currency. However, the arbitrage is not complete until I repatriate the money back and pay off this $1 borrowing that I did at 2%. Now, the risk-free rate is known to me. The exchange rate today is known to me. This money that will come to me T years later in INR is also known to me because I can calculate. So today itself I can enter a forward contract to convert this much INR into US dollar. At a time T later, I will have to convert so much INR into US dollar. So I will enter a forward contract today itself at T equal to 0 to convert this much INR into USD at the rate of F0. So if this is F0 USD per INR, since all currencies are in the direct quote, then so much INR will give us so much into F0 USD. 1 INR is giving me F0 USD. So much INR will give me so much into F0 USD. Please note why I multiplied this with F0, because today itself, when I'm borrowing in US dollars and trying to exploit this arbitrage, I would want to lock in all rates. So I will enter into a forward contract that I will sell so much INR and receive USD. And once I receive USD, I will pay my $1 borrowing back. I borrowed $1 to begin with. I've converted into USD, but on $1 I'll have to pay some interest at the rate of 2%. So e to the power 0.02 into t, or e to the power rd into t. This difference is equal to my arbitrage profit, and the no arbitrage principle argues that this arbitrage profit should be 0. Otherwise everybody will just do this. So the forward currency or the forward rate would be such that this arbitrage leaves us nothing. So let's solve. 1 by S naught into e raised to the power rf into t into f naught will be equal to e raised to the power rd into t, or f naught will be equal to S naught e raised to the power rd minus rf into t. So if the Indian risk-free rate is 10% and the US risk-free rate is 2%, then the forward price of the currency will be lower than the spot price, because this will be negative. It will be e raised to power 2 minus 10. So what was 0.02 USD per INR would probably be 0.019 USD per INR, or the rupee will depreciate such that when you try to exploit this arbitrage, you may earn 10% in India, but when you repatriate it back, it would have been lost to the extent of 8%, such that you eventually make only 2%, which you could have anyway made in the US as well, and there will be no arbitrage profit. So the forward rate must be such that there is no arbitrage profit. Otherwise everybody will make infinite money like this. Borrow $1 million, invest it in India, repatriate it, and make the 8% difference. So the currencies will move, or the forward price will be such that there is no arbitrage profit. It will be S naught e raised to power rd minus rf into t. For remembering the formula, remember it's the same as for any regular forward, S e raised to power rt, only the domestic risk-free rate, which is anyways the domestic risk-free rate in our regular forward questions as well. The foreign risk-free rate will be thought of like the continuously compounded dividend yield. So for a continuously compounded, it would be f r minus r star into t. Off the market currencies, again, take an offsetting position, extinguish the contract, and compute the present value of your payoff. That's how you'll value off the market forward contracts. We'll do a few questions. The risk-free rates are 6% in the US and 8% in Mexico. The current spot exchange rate is $0.085 per Mexican peso. Calculate the forward exchange rate for a 180-day forward contract. Now, if there is US in the question, be a US citizen, bring everything in your direct quote. So our direct quote would be how many dollars per Mexican peso. Fortunately, in this question, it is given in the form of how many dollars per Mexican peso. So there is no adjustment that we need to do. Otherwise, we would have done 1 over whatever is the rate to convert it into a direct quote. Indirect quote and direct quote are just the reciprocals of each other. The forward rate can be derived as the spot rate into e raised to the power rd minus rf into t. So t equal to 0, we want to enter into a forward contract to long or short the currency. Please note, whether you long or you short, the rate won't change. The forward rate will be this. If your view is positive, if you think it's underpriced, then you long. If your view is negative, then you short. but the price will always be determined by the no arbitrage relationship in forwards, that is S e raised to power RT. So the spot price in this case is $0.0845 per Mexican peso into e raised to power the domestic risk free rate is 6% minus the foreign risk free rate that is 8% into the time that is 180 by 365. So we can compute. .02 into 180 divided by 365 minus second ln. This is e raised to the power term multiplied by 0.0845 will give us the forward currency that comes out to be 0.08367. So the Mexican peso will depreciate. 1 Mexican peso in the spot is worth $0.0845. 1 Mexican peso in the forward is worth only $0.08367. So the Mexican peso has depreciated. It is buying back less dollars. So if you try to exploit the arbitrage by borrowing in US and investing in peso, when you repatriate your money, some amount will be lost as the currency has depreciated. However, this will be the fair forwards rate today. Calculate the value of the forward contract in the last example if after 15 days the spot rate is $0.098 per Mexican peso. So the short counterparty, let's assume, is short the Mexican peso. So at t equal to 15, the rate has moved to $0.098 US dollar per Mexican peso. He has already entered into a contract whereby at t equal to 180 he will sell 1 Mexican peso and receive $0.0836 US dollars, because that's the rate at which he has contracted. Now 15 days have passed and the Mexican peso has become $0.098 US dollar per Mexican peso, and he wants to extinguish his contract. He's already short some Mexican peso. It could have been 1, it could have been 10,000. So to extinguish the contract, what does he need to do? He needs to long a 165-day forward on the Mexican peso. So he now needs to long 1 Mexican peso at the new forward rate. He has already short it at this. So to long 1 Mexican peso, what will be the new rate? It will be based on the current spot price into e raised to the power, let's assume the risk free rates remain the same, so it will be 0.06, that is the US rate, minus 0.08, that is the rate in Mexico, into t will be 165 divided by 365, which can be calculated as 0.02 into 165 divided by 365 plus minus second ln, and multiply this with 0.098. So it comes out to be 0.09712. So the value of the new forward is 0.097112. 2. So at t equal to 180, he will long, or he is short, we are computing the value to the short now. He is selling 1 Mexican peso for 0.08367 US dollars. He will long 1 Mexican peso for 0.0971 $2. So by entering this long contract at t equal to 15, has he fixed his profit? So F1 comes out to be 0.09712, that is the fair forward price at t equal to 15. He is already short 1 Mexican peso, that is he is sell 1 Mexican peso and receive 0.08367 USD. To extinguish this contract, he needs to long 1 Mexican peso. To buy 1 Mexican peso, what is the rate, or what is the forward rate now? 0.09712. So he will have to pay F1, that is he will have to pay 0.09712 USD. So after longing this contract, he has extinguished his position. That is, he will short a Mexican peso for so many USD and he will long a Mexican peso for so many USD. So his payoff will be F0 minus F1. To buy the Mexican peso, he has to pay F1. He is originally short, and then he will short the Mexican peso and receive F0. So F0 minus F1 is what he has locked in. So his payoff will be equal to 0.0837 minus 0.09712, because he is selling 1 Mexican peso for so many USD, and now the Mexican peso has appreciated. It was worth only 0.085 USD and now it is worth approximately 0.1 USD. So when he buys it back, he will have to pay more US dollars. That is, he is having a loss of 0.0837 minus 0.09712. This is the loss in US dollars. Which will come out to be minus 0.01342. This is the loss that will happen at t equal to 180. So if we have to compute the present value of the loss, then we have to discount it back by it's a US dollar calculation. Both these are US dollar numbers. So we'll discount it back by the US dollar rate. If it was a Mexican peso, then we would discount it back by the rate in Mexico. So it will be 0.0132 into e raised to the power minus 0.06 into 165 by 365. That will be 0.01342 into 0.06 into 165 divided by 365. Press the button plus minus, press second and press ln. Multiplied by 0.01342, which will come out to be 0.01306. So this will be the payoff to the short counterparty, that he'll have a loss of 0.01306 per dollar or per Mexican peso that he has short. Had he short 1 million Mexican peso, the loss would have been this multiplied by 1 million. We are calculating the payoff to the short counterparty. The payoff to the long counterparty, who is long the Mexican peso, would have been the exact opposite. It would have been plus 0.01342 because he's bought it for 0.08367 USD and he will sell it for 0.09712 USD. So he's buying cheap and selling expensive. The short counterparty is selling cheap and buying expensive. He's selling it for 0.08367 and he'll buy it at 0.09712 15 days later. So the concept of valuing the forward remains exactly the same, be it currencies, be it commodities. Consider a forward contract on a stock market index. Identify the false statement. The forward price depends directly on the level of the stock market index. So what is the forward price equal to? It is equal to the spot into e raised to the power r minus r star into t. R is the risk-free rate, r star is the continuously compounded dividend yield. So the forward price depends directly on the level of the stock market index. That is correct, it depends on S. It will fall if the underlying stocks increase the level of dividend payments. That is also correct. If R star goes up, this F will come down. It will rise if the time to maturity is increased. That is also correct. And the forward price will fall if interest rate is raised. So if RF goes up, the forward price will fall. That is incorrect. The forward price will go up. So that's the false statement that we've asked to identify. Using the following information, answer the next two questions. The 2-year risk-free rate in the United Kingdom and France is 8% and 5% per annum, continuously compounded respectively. The current French franc to the GBP currency rate is that 1 unit of GBP currency costs 0.75 units of French franc. So 1 GBP is equal to 0.75 units of French franc. What is the 2-year forward price of 1 unit of GBP in terms of French franc so that no arbitrage opportunity exists? So there is no US in this case, so you can become the citizen of any one country. So the rate given is a domestic or a direct quote for the French franc. That is, how many units of the domestic currency for 1 unit of the foreign currency. So we will assume ourselves to be citizens of France. So that it is anyways in our direct quote, domestic currency per foreign currency. The forward price can then be calculated as the spot price into e raised to power rd minus rf into t. Spot price is 0.75 into e raised to the power rd is the French rate is how much? 5% minus the UK rate is 8% into the time is 2 years. So we'll multiply this by 2. So the fair forward rate will be 0.75 into e raised to power minus 0.03 into 2. That will come out to be 0.06. Press the button plus minus second ln multiplied by 0.75, that is 0.70632. That's a straightforward question, we've already solved it. If the observed 2-year forward price of 1 unit of GBP is 0.850 units, so at t equal to 0, the French franc rate is 0.75 French franc to GBP. The fair forward price we have already calculated. We've calculated that at t equal to 2, this should be 0.7063. However, what we see in the market is that people are quoting the 2-year forward price as 0.85 French franc to GBP. This was the no arbitrage price. This is the actual observed price. In such a scenario, do we see an arbitrage opportunity? So remember the example of the potatoes, where we bought the potatoes in New York and sold them in New Jersey and captured the arbitrage. That is, buy cheap and sell expensive. So the first thing in capturing an arbitrage opportunity is to identify something as cheap and to identify something else as expensive. So in this case, what we can identify is that in the forward, the GBP is costing 0.85 when it should actually cost 0.7063 based on the current information. So either this spot price of GBP is undervalued. That is, this shouldn't be 0.75, it should be 0.8 or 0.9, such that this 0.85 is justified. So either this is undervalued, either the spot is undervalued or the forward is overvalued. One of the two has to be there, because based on the current relationship, the forward comes out to be 0.7063. So what is going to happen as this arbitrage opportunity extinguishes, as the price of potatoes in New York would go up and the price of potatoes in New Jersey would come down, either the spot will start moving up or this forward will come down, such that the arbitrage doesn't exist. Either ways, to benefit from the arbitrage, you need to long cheap, long the spot, and short expensive, short the forward on the GBP. For the French franc, it will be other way around. If GBP is expensive, French franc is cheap. If GBP is cheap, French franc is expensive. So we are thinking from the perspective of GBP, price is 0.85, it should be 0.7036. So GBP is expensive in forward. That means it is cheap in the spot. So either forward price will come down or spot price will go up. So what you need to do is long the spot, short the forward. So long GBP in the spot, short GBP in the forward. But if we have to long GBP in the spot, in arbitrage we don't bring any money from our own. We will simply borrow French franc. Borrow French franc, long GBP, convert them into GBP. When you sell this GBP forward, you will again get the French franc. One currency can't be sold for nothing but another currency. So when you sell the GBP, you will again get French franc that you can use to repay this borrowing, like we studied in our derivation. So borrow the French franc, buy the GBP, and enter a short forward contract on GBP, not on French franc. So borrow French franc, buy GBP, and enter a short forward contract on GBP is the answer that we are looking for. So that is how you can exploit the arbitrage in all previous examples also. In all examples that we studied, when we derived the forward price, if the actual observed forward price is not the same, then we can exploit the arbitrage, as we will study with more examples in the coming slides. So we'll now understand forwards and futures on commodities. So a commodity essentially is any product. They can be agricultural commodities, grains, oilseeds, corn, wheat, soybean, coffee, sugar. There can be livestock and meat, that's also a commodity. Base metals, aluminium, copper, zinc. Precious metals like gold, silver, platinum. Energy products, natural gas, crude oil are all examples of commodities. Just like we had forwards on spot stocks, currencies, bonds that we studied, we can have a forward on a commodity as well. So at t equal to 0, the commodity price was equal to S0. Two counterparties want to enter into an agreement to exchange the commodity at a time t equal to t in the future. So if they want to do that, the seller and the buyer's perspective that we discussed earlier will still hold. That is, the commodity owner can sell the commodity now, or he can sell it in the forward. Similarly, the buyer can buy it right now, or the buyer can buy it in the forward. So the relation F is equal to S0 e raised to power RT should still generally hold. However, in the case of commodities, there is one additional complication that comes in. That is, commodities normally will have storage cost. So if you buy oil, you buy livestock, you buy agricultural commodities, if you buy them in the spot, then you have to store them somewhere and you have to make sure it's a good facility, because these things can go bad, and if they go bad, then there will be no value at all. So in commodities, if you're buying in the spot or if you're holding the commodity, then you additionally incur storage cost. Let's see how that storage cost affects the fair forwards price or affects the calculation. So again, we can see either the buyer's perspective or the seller's perspective. Let's see the buyer's perspective in this case, and you guys will do the seller's perspective on your own. So at t equal to 0, I have an option of buying the commodity right in the spot. If I buy it in the spot, then I will pay the price S0 today and I will get the commodity with me. I need the commodity at t equal to t. So at t equal to t, I will have the commodity, but assuming I borrowed this S0 from a bank, since I actually wanted to enter a forward, then my total cost that I'll have to repay if I took S0 from a bank would be S0 e raised to the power RT, and I will have to incur additional storage cost on storing this commodity till the time t, because I bought it in the spot. So the payout will be whatever paid to the bank and also the storage cost. If the buyer, on the other hand, entered a forward and bought the commodity forward, so he will buy it for a price K or a price F at t equal to t. Right now, what is the exchange happening? Nothing. It's just an agreement right now. At t equal to t, he will pay the amount F, or he will pay the amount K, and receive the commodity. Assuming the forward price is K, that's what he has to pay because he is long. In both cases, he is getting the commodity. In the first case, he has to pay the price of S0 e raised to power RT plus the storage cost, and in the forward, he just has to pay K. You can similarly prove from the seller's perspective that the seller will not accept anything less than this, and the buyer will not be willing to pay anything more than this. So if K is more than this, he'll rather buy and store it himself. If K is less than this, seller will not enter into the contract because he'll rather sell it in the spot. So for commodity forwards, just remember, the fair forward price is S0 e raised to power RT plus storage cost. If the continuously compounded storage cost is given, just like the continuously compounded dividend yield, then f becomes s naught e raised to the power r plus lambda into t, where lambda is the continuously compounded storage costs. So we derive that for a commodity, fair forward price is equal to s naught e raised to the power r plus lambda into t, where lambda is the storage cost. Now actually there is another complication in commodities, that is the concept of convenience yield. So even though storing the commodity or storing excess commodity will have a cost or will incur storage cost, but it can at times provide a convenience yield. Convenience yield is the benefit derived from knowing that you have an assured supply of the commodity. It is represented by the letter C. Now if I am a power plant or if I am a power manufacturer, then billions of dollars have gone into the construction of this power plant, and it's a thermal power plant, so without coal this power plant is useless. Now even though coal may have significant storage cost, I have to protect it from moisture, I have to make sure it can be transported and everything, but if I run out of coal for even 1 minute, then my entire investment goes waste. So would I mind incurring some storage cost in order to ensure a smooth supply of coal? Not really, because the convenience yield from owning the coal or having the coal is very high. So the fair forward price is actually equal to the spot price into e raised to power r plus the storage cost minus the convenience yield into t. That is, you may store, it may incur storage cost, but if there is a good convenience yield, then the forward price may not be that high. So convenience yield is being subtracted like the dividend yield or like any other benefit. So dividend yield is the benefit that we get from the stock, convenience yield is the benefit that we get from the commodity. So this is how we derive the fair forward price of a commodity. We can even lease the commodity. So it belongs to us, but we have leased it out. So we have some gold or we have some cattle. We are not keeping it, we are owning it, but we have rented it out to somebody else. So can we lease a commodity out? If we lease a commodity out and let's say we receive a lease rate equal to L, then the fair forwards price would be equal to S naught e raised to the power R minus L into T, because L is something like the dividend yield or the benefit that we are getting from the stock. Please note, if we have leased it out, then there is no lambda because we are not storing it with us, and there is no convenience yield also because we don't have it with us, we have leased it out. Instantly that person won't be able to give it back if I run out of coal. He will give it back as per the terms and conditions. So we either derive convenience yield and pay storage cost, or we simply lease the commodity. So there are actually two formulae for calculating the fair forward price of a commodity. If you store it, it will be e raised to power r plus lambda minus c. If you lease it out, it will be e raised to power r minus L into t. Theoretically speaking, L should be equal to c minus lambda, or minus L would be equal to c minus lambda minus c, that is, if both of them exactly have to be the same, but may not always be the case. So that's the concept of commodity futures. Theoretically, everything else remains the same. Just know there is additional complication of storage costs and convenience yield. We say that the commodity is in backwardation if the forward price is less than the spot price. This will happen when the convenience yield is very high. So forward will be less than the spot for commodities that have a high current demand and high convenience yield. So people want to store those commodities. People want to have an assured supply. They think the commodity may be in short supply in the future, or any such apprehension will result in the forward price being lesser than the spot price. So spot price is very, very high because there's probably a shortage in the spot, implying a high convenience yield. If F is greater than spot, then we say the commodity is in a contango, or the convenience yield is not high enough to outdo the risk-free rate and the storage costs. In that case, a forward price would be higher than the current spot price. Contango and backwardation. Markets are in contango if the spot prices are lower than forward prices. Markets are in backwardation if spot prices are higher than the forward prices. Backwardation occurs when there is high current demand for the commodity, which implies high convenience yield. Now, a very important concept that we will understand from this topic, that is the difference between hedgers and speculators. So the spot price of corn is 207 cents per bushel. The futures price of the September contract is 241 cents. If hedgers are net short, which of the following statement is most accurate considering the expected spot price in September? Now please understand, we studied right at the beginning that somebody entering into a forward contract may be a genuine hedger. He really wants the book and hence he's longing it, or he may just be a speculator. He thinks the price will go up and hence he is longing it. In the market for corn, which type of hedgers do you think will be long? It would be users of corn, because they have a risk that the price may go up, so they will long the corn today. Cornflakes company, all food products companies that require corn in their manufacturing process or as an ingredient will all be hedgers. That is, they need corn and hence they want to fix a price. Who will be the short hedgers in the forward contract? It will primarily be the farmers, because if they produce all the corn and then there is no buyer, then it will be a problem. So they would want to enter a short contract today to fix the price of corn. So hedgers are longing also, and there are some hedgers who are shorting. Now what matters is which side is more. Hedgers are net short, means there are more farmers than food product companies. So there are more people shorting, more hedgers shorting and less hedgers longing. Please note, for every short there has to be a long, or somebody has to be long. So question is not whether there will be a long party, the question is whether that long party is a hedger or a speculator. So if there are more short hedgers, there are more farmers, then some short contracts will be absorbed by these long hedgers, but the remaining short contracts will have to be longed by speculators. So you are saying you want to sell somebody who has absolutely no business of corn would have to be a speculator if he is taking the long side of that contract. However, the speculator will come in only if he thinks that he will make a profit. So if the speculator is coming in at a price of 241.5, because that is the price of the futures contract, so t equal to 0, contracts are being written at $241.5. That means a speculator is longing at this price. At maturity, speculator will have to pay this price, and he will sell at what price? Whatever is the spot price at this time. So the speculator would have come into the contract only if the expected spot price at this price or at this time would be slightly higher than 241.5, because the hedger will take that small loss. Hedger will say, fine, I will sell it at 241.5 even though actual price may be slightly higher, but at least I have locked in my sale. And what if the price was lower? Then I would not have been able to sell anything to anyone. So if hedgers are net short, the expected stock price or expected spot price at maturity will be slightly higher than the agreed upon forwards price, ensuring a slight profit for the speculator, because speculator will come to help you out only if he sees small profit. If hedgers were net long, if there were more corn product companies, then the expected spot price would be slightly lower, because these companies are willing to pay a slightly higher price but to fix the contract so that at least they get their assured supply that they need. So please think about it. A very important concept of the dynamics of hedgers and speculators in the forwards market. If hedgers are net short, expected spot price is slightly higher than the agreed upon forwards price. If hedgers are net long, then expected spot price will be slightly lower than the agreed upon forwards price. Calculate the price of a 1-year forward contract on gold. Assume the storage cost for gold is $5 per ounce with payment made at the end of the year. Spot gold is $290 per ounce and the risk-free rate is 5%. So the forward price is spot price into e raised to the power r plus c into t, rather lambda into t, where lambda is the storage cost. However, we are not given the continuously compounded storage cost. We are given the absolute amount of the storage cost. So it will be 290 into e raised to the power 0.05 into t, that is 1 year, plus the storage cost of $5, since it anyways has to be paid at the end of the year. We will just add $5. If the $5 was at the beginning of the year, then the storage cost throughout the year would have been 5 into e raised to power rt, or 5 into e raised to power 0.01. So the fair price in this case will come out to be 309.87. Explain cash and carry arbitrage. Assuming the observed 1-year forward price of gold is $320. So we'll apply the same concept as we did in the currencies. So if the observed price is 320 and the fair price we've derived is about 310, then how do we exploit the arbitrage? The fair price is 310, the observed price is 320. Is gold cheap or expensive? Please note, it is expensive in some market and cheap in the other. So it is expensive in the forward, which means it is cheap in the spot. So if this has to be 320, either this 290 is incorrect or this 320 is incorrect. So either this will come down or this 290 will go up. So either ways, how do we profit? Long spot, short forward. To long in the spot, we will need to borrow $290. Assuming we are working with just 1 ounce of gold, and we can work with 10 ounces, 100 ounces also. For example, if you are working with 1 ounce, then we will borrow $290 and buy 1 ounce of gold and sell it 1 year later. Let's see the profit that we'll make. So we borrowed 290 and bought 1 gold. At the end of 1 year, we sold it for 320. So at t equal to 1, our inflow will be 320. Our outflow would be, on the 290 borrowing, we would have to repay with interest, that is e raised to power 0.05 into 1. And for the gold that I have purchased, I have to also incur the storage cost because I bought it in the spot. So this will be my cash outflows and this will be my cash inflow. The difference is arbitrage profit. The difference is the profit that I have made in 1 ounce of gold. If I started with 10,000 ounces, I would have made 10,000 times this profit. This is referred to as cash and carry arbitrage. You long in the spot and you short in the forward. If the observed gold price was equal to $300 instead of 320, if it was 300, then you would short in the spot and long in the forward. When you short in the spot, you receive money. You receive $290 for selling, and then you long in the forward. That is referred to as reverse cash and carry arbitrage, where you short in the spot and long in the forward. If the forwards price is not equal to the theoretical forwards price, then there is an arbitrage opportunity. In commodity markets, the complex relationships between spot and forward prices are embodied in the commodity price curve. Which of the following statements is true? In a backwardation market, the discount in forward relative to the spot represents a positive yield for the supplier. In backwardation, that is true. Forward prices are at a discount to the spot price. F is lower than S. It is a high convenience yield. But please note, yield is always, or convenience yield is for the power company, for the user of coal, or for the user of the commodity. So in backwardation, the discount represents a yield for the commodity consumer. Backwardation is when forward is lesser than the spot. In a contango, there is no discount. In a contango, the forward is at a premium to the spot. So these two are incorrect. If a commodity is more expensive for immediate delivery than for future delivery, so S is greater than F, then the commodity curve is said to be in backwardation. Okay, there is nothing called reversal.